Welcome, everyone. We'll start our meeting here now, April 29th, the hybrid meeting, and call this meeting to order and welcome all our staff that are here tonight and also the members of the public who are joining us from home. And move on to item number 2, please. Recommendation.
That South Huron Committee of the Whole approves the agenda as presented.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries of 7. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof from members of the committee. Any at all at this time? Not seeing any. Thank you. Reports 4.1. Ms. Masula-Paulson.
While some user fee reviews have been undertaken since 2015 review, there has not been a comprehensive review of all municipal fees since 2015. Given the limitations on raising revenue in the municipal environment, staff recommended a user fee review as a cost-effective way to understand the total cost of services and identify potential fee deficiencies. Some of the goals of the study were to develop the cost of each user fee to assist in making informed decisions regarding the fees for services. Some of the objectives included developing a basis for setting fees and the intentions of where fees should recover the full cost of service and where tax subsidies are recommended. Enhancing fairness and equity, ensuring compliance with legislation and regulations, developing an updatable and comprehensive list of fees, supporting financial sustainability, and establishing fees that are competitive and have been compared in a meaningful manner to other municipalities. The municipality is not obligated to charge the full cost of service. Each fee is set at council's discretion. However, there is a need to recognize that lower rates of cost recovery may equate to either a drop in service level or a need to increase tax levies. The reality of the municipal fee environment is that significant increases to achieve 100% cost recovery may not be feasible, may not be desirable, or appropriate, depending on policy direction. The full cost of providing a service may not necessarily become the approved fee, but it can serve as the objective basis as to the maximum amount that may be collected. So I'll pass it on to our Deputy Treasurer, Kate, who will take lead on the presentation.
Good to see you, Kate. We'll proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Finch and committee. So Scott, if you can advance to the backgrounder slide, please. Okay. Do you have the backgrounder, Scott? Backgrounder? Perfect, thank you. So I won't cover too much of what's written in page 1 of the backgrounder, as Rebecca covered it quite eloquently in her introduction. But essentially what we're hoping to do with this user fee study is to find an appropriate balance between the tax levy and the user fees. What's required in that is a comprehensive understanding of how much it costs to provide a unit of service as much as possible, provided with a clear, consistent, and defensible rationale for the fees and the subsidy levels. Key considerations, in addition to those that Rebecca identified in setting user fees, is the consideration of whether or not the service provides benefit to the wider community, the ability of users to pay the fees, competitive market conditions, the demand for service, and pricing limits set by municipal policy objectives as well as legislation. So just to review an overall scope of the project and the milestones of the project, if you could advance to the second page, Scott. So this project was initially awarded in May of 2023 and to Hemson Consulting Limited. We had the kickoff meeting with the steering committee May 12th, and then a background review from June to August of 2023, where there was information gathering and financial forecasting. And then from September 2023 to January 2024, data analysis, benchmarking, and initial recommendations by Hemson. March 4th saw the Hemson Consulting report presented to council. And then following that, we opened a period of community engagement from March 5th through to April 15th of 2024, which included a March 20th public consultation meeting where the public was invited to attend the presentation by Hemson Consulting to ask their questions and get further clarification of their findings. Following that, the public statutory meeting under the Building Code Act to address specifically the building code fees that were presented by Hempsons. And then April 29th, today's committee of the whole meeting. So we're going to review a little bit about the community engagement process that we did undertake, because that is a large portion and consideration when setting any kind of fees, is to understand what the community feedback is on this. So some of the steps that we took in undertaking this was we set up a specific email address to collect information on questions on the user fee study from the public. We included online surveys for the public, including a targeted survey specific to community user groups, where there were 40 community user groups with a targeted survey sent to them. We solicited information and feedback on the website through the hub and our other social media platforms. We held the 2 public consultation and public meetings, as mentioned previously. And we have summarized this information in the backgrounders. I think it's the Appendix A through Appendix 5, including the raw data and the summary. So based on the recommendations presented by Hempson Consulting Limited and their findings, staff have reviewed those recommendations, as well as the community feedback received up until April 15th at the close of the community engagement period, and have drafted recommendations presented to council today in schedules A through H, which you have printed copies as well as the copy online. Regarding the financial impacts, some of the underlying goals of the study were to determine the municipality's cost of providing services where able to, and set the desired funding between user fees and taxation. For levy supported services, given the cost providing of any service, any increase in the user fee will decrease the tax burden and vice versa. For user fee based budgets, increases in user fees ensures the sustainability of the service. Hempson's presentations over the last several months have provided more detail into the anticipated financial impacts of their recommendations. If the municipality decides to implement changes of user fees as recommended or otherwise, the changes will be taken into consideration during the 2025 budgeting process. Operational considerations. Staff, you can advance to the next page, Scott, thank you. Staff are recommending that the new fees and charges bylaw come into effect September 1st of 2024, allowing enough time for the municipality to notify the public and make any kind of changes operationally that need to be done within our software systems, et cetera. The recommended effective date, however, is dependent on the timeline of passing a bylaw. So if additional unanticipated meetings or information gathering is required, the timeline may be needed to be adjusted accordingly. So throughout the presentation, you'll see after each department, we have specific requests and resolutions that we are asking for. But in general, we are asking that council provide resolution to accept the changes of the fees and charges schedule as detailed in the schedules A through H of the staff recommendations, as well and or direction from council as to what level of cost recovery would be considered favorable for implementation. And as you can see from the very long list of consultation individuals, this has been a project where the entire team, senior management team and others have been involved in trying to craft an appropriate balance for your consideration. If we can move to the user fee and revenue generation study, please. Thank you. Okay, so welcome to the Committee of the Whole, where we discuss the user fee and revenue generation study. Today, we'll be going through several different aspects. We'll talk about a little bit more detail about the community engagement results, and then we'll speak to the staff recommendations for each of the departmental schedules that are in Schedule A of your printed copy and online, Schedules A through H for each. And as mentioned, there is a request after each department to resolve or to provide direction for that specific department. Next slide. So in regards to the community engagement response rates, I touched on briefly kind of some of the steps that we had taken to try and engage the community. Again, all of this information is provided to you in the appendices A through A5, where it talks to the actual raw data as well as a summarized response for the community engagement that we did receive. So the dedicated user fee study at southhuron.ca email was activated March 5th, following the March 4th council meeting where the presentation was first made by Hempson. We received six written submissions, including general comments, follow-ups to a delegation, and again, those can be found in the appendices. Attendees at the March 20th, 2024 public consultation. Public again was invited to attend the presentation either virtually or in person. Presentation by Hempson Consulting and supported by staff for the proposed changes to the Municipal Act and Planning Act fees, as well as others. There were 6 people that attended, including 2 speakers and about approximately 5 people online, one of which submitted comment. And those comments again are captured in the appendices. April 2nd was the statutory public meeting for the Building Code Act fees. And there were 2 people in attendance, 1 who spoke. And online surveys and for households as well as community user groups. South Huron has a household count per MPAC of 4,733. We received responses from households of 107, again referenced in the appendix, and emails were sent specifically to the 40 community user groups that we identified who are regular users of our facilities, with 9 responses. Next slide, please. So again, we're going to talk a little bit more about summary of the responses and the findings of the community engagement and feedback that we received. Next slide. So demographically, the bulk of our respondents to the household surveys were generated out of Ward 2 Exeter, with the second most responses being in Ward 1 Stephen, and 10% attributable to those individuals who are responding from outside of South Huron, and 9 from Usborne. Next slide. From the data that was collected from the survey, we were able to identify that the household composition, predominantly there were 1 to 2 people in the households of the respondents, up to there were 13 people with 5+. So multi-individual households, where the household ages ranged, where we class them into what we would consider a young family with minors, adult singles, adult families, seniors, multi-generational, other where it was unclear what, based on the individual's response, how to classify, or where there was no response. The bulk of the responses that we did receive did come from young families. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are the individual questions that were asked for the surveys of households. In regards to the cost of providing municipal services, we identified that they had increased since the last major fee review in 2015, with all other things being the same for the current level of municipal services. Half of the respondents were not willing to pay higher user fees. 20% indicated that they would be willing to pay higher user fees, and 28% gave no response in that respect. Next slide, please. Again, about 37% indicated that they felt that increased costs for user fee services should be borne solely by the users. And almost an equal 33% felt that increased costs should be absorbed through property tax rates and to the property tax base. And again, 30% no response given. Next slide, please. The next question tried to gauge about the affordability of increased user fees, and 50% of the respondents indicated that they could not afford increased user fees. 22% indicated that they could, and 28% no response. Okay. And then we looked at the individual departments and how the respondents felt about funding for each of these departments. As you can see that in the third section of the graph there, the bulk of the respondents did feel that fees reflect an appropriate balance between property taxes and user fees at this point in time. If you want to call it an appetite for an increased fee, was most acceptable to individuals in the planning, building, and corporate and financial services aspects. And the fire and emergency fees, rec fees, and transportation services were generally felt that fees should be lowered in those areas. And again, the bulk of the respondents gave no response to these individual questions. Next slide, please. And that's just a summary again of the invitations that were emailed to the specific community user groups. While the gist of the surveys were the same in both the household and the community user groups surveys, there were specifics in the community user group surveys that spoke to how much of your budget is allocated to municipal fees. Are you aware of whether or not you had access to the South Huron Vitality Fund, whether or not you had utilized the charity exemption fund for the rental of municipal services or facilities, all of which can be, again, summarized and found in the backgrounder appendices A through 5. Any questions to this point?
Questions from members of council? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
I'm not sure if this is a question or a comment or kind of a bit of both. As we went through the information on all of the departments, pretty clear what the recommendation was from our consultant and then what the staff recommendation was. But with this whole community survey business, except for one department in particular, most commentary didn't really reflect back on what we heard from the users. So I'm just wondering if, as we go through it from a staff review perspective, if you did say that the surveys were taken into consideration, if we could just be reminded of how those surveys affected staff recommendations, whether they did or they didn't, or by how much, or percentage wise, or yeah, I would appreciate that if that's possible.
Certainly. Each department has prepared their own justification for their recommended user fees.
Right.
And where available, they will comment on that. I will say that there was a marked, specifically for the water and wastewater study, there was, I would classify as perhaps a misunderstanding of the fact that the study was not intended to address consumptive fees or base fees for water and wastewater. So I will say that a lot of the comments that were received in respect to that specific department addressed consumptive and base charges, whereas that was outside of the scope of this project. So that will not be addressed, but I do want to flag that was perhaps a misconception.
Yeah, I could see
yes.
where that would be a misconception.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay, at this point in time, we'll go into the individual staff recommendations and the schedules that you have received printed copies of here. The first of which is the planning fees under Schedule A. So each department will go through their recommendations, answer any questions, and ask for their response from the committee at that point in time, specifically for the resolutions that are asked of at the end of each department. So Mike, I'll invite you to go ahead, and if you can just let Scott know when you're ready to advance to the next screen.
Thank you, Kate, and through the chair. Scott, yes, can you advance to the next screen, please? Thank you, sir. So Hempson's planning fees were presented with their overall overview. What was interesting with this was the county had also started conducting their fee analysis for both the county and the municipal portions of the planning fees. So what I've tried to do is outline for you the differences between both Hempson's and the counties, and then within my recommendations, what we recommend. So the county, just to give you a bit of history, the county has in the past provided both county and municipal fees. And the idea is that so that it's a holistic approach over the entire County of Huron and the 9 lower tier municipalities, so everybody is consistent. And that was their goal again with this fee review. Their justification report is attached to this slide as to why and where and how they came up with their proposed fees. Next.
And just one moment, Mike. Go ahead, Mr. Counselor Oak.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mayor. Mike, just on that county report, it was April 18th. Did, just by record, do you know if that got passed at county council?
So to the chair, their intention is to have this presented to all 9 lower tiers. And then prior to going to county council.
Okay, so it hasn't come to county council as of yet.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we are the first lower tier to bring this forward. Thanks, Scott. So what I've done is, again, tried to illustrate, if you could go back one, please. Try to illustrate the differences between Hempson's report and the counties, because Hempson's was municipal portion only. It did not take into consideration any of the county portions of the planning fees. So Hempson's wanted a 64% increase for the municipal portion on average. There's a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but on average, that's what they wanted. When you compare the two and you take Hempson's municipal portion and then add the county's proposed county fees only, the county portion is 80% higher than what we have now. However, if you look at the two county portion with municipal compared, Hempson's and the county portion compared, all right, the county portion or the county's proposed fees is 31% less than Hempson's proposed fees, if everything was put together. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that before I move forward? Because it was a little bit numberish.
Any questions? Counselor Vaughn.
Wondering if Mike can repeat that again. That was a mouthful. Took.
Yep, I can try. Might have to hug Don once. Yes, of course I can, through the chair. So if you were to take Hempson's municipal portions proposed increase and you were to add in the county's proposed portions only, you'd combine those. Sorry, I'm just reading my slide here. And compare that to the county's proposed fees with the municipal portion. The county's proposed fees total is 31% less than what Hempson's would have proposed with both portions combined.
Okay, thank you. Go
Is that
ahead.
good?
Yep. Very well. Please continue.
So, the county did, like I said, propose many of the fees, but there is some municipal fees that are municipal portion only. So the county did not look at them, and there's 4. Can you go to the next slide, please, Scott? The next one, and probably twice more. One more. Thank you, sir. So these are the 4 municipal portion fees that are not included in the county's fees, the county's proposed fees for either the municipal portion or the county portion. So the first one being site plan control. For site plan control, what Hempson's had proposed, which is what I would be recommending to a certain point, is that we break it down in between a major and a minor streams for our site plan. Okay. The fees that I have proposed, which is how am I going to put this? It's not as high as the Hempson's fees, but it is more in comparison with the average of what the county has increased their fees by. Okay, so that's how I kind of calculated that. Our minor fee for site plan control application will be a total of $2,170. $1,420 of that would be the municipal portion. $750 of that is a new fee added by the county for their review of the applications, and then obviously as well as for cloud permit. Which I maybe should have said this right off the start. The County of Huron has implemented Cloud Permit as their e-permitting process for planning fees, which has taken that amount off of the lower tiers. So the lower tiers, including South Huron, who had Cloud Permit prior, no longer has to subscribe to Cloud Permit for their planning fees. So that is a reduction in our expenses annually of approximately 15,000. Okay. So for your site plan, I went through the minor. For the major portion, Hempson was proposing a both residential as well as an ICI. So your industrial, commercial, institutional, they had different fees for those. In the applications that we have gone through in the past years, it's basically the same amount of work regardless. So I took the lower of the two, which I believe was the residential portion. And the total fee for a major would be $3,492.50. 27.42.50 of that would be municipal portion, $750 for the county again. So that is my recommendations for the site plan control applications. The next, excuse me, the next two is application for recirculation. Hempson's had proposed a $500 fee, which is what I would recommend we stick with. Our previous fee was $370, I believe. Zoning certificates, our previous fee was $75, which was quite low. Hempson's were proposing 200. We've kind of, sorry, I'm just trying to read this here. 200 was thought to be a little low, so to stay competitive and yet not lose money, we decided to propose $125 fee, which again was kind of the percentage increase of the county portion. And then cash in lieu parkland, we decided to remain at $500. Hempson's did not have a proposal for this. This is our internal decision. Throughout the 9 lower tier municipalities in the county, one county charges $1,000. One municipality charges $1,000. One municipality charges $750. The remaining 7 is $500. So we are consistent throughout the rest of the lower tiers. Next slide, please, Scott. So with that, are my following 4 recommendations. If you have any questions, please ask.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And this, I'm not sure if this question is to you, to Mike or to maybe Rebecca or. So throughout the presentation today, there's talk of full cost recovery. And so my question is, what is full cost recovery and what does that include? Do we know what that includes in how that's allocated with, you know, somewhere I think I read where we were, you know, you'd take staff and you'd say 0.1 is to this or 0.1 is to this, or just wondered how we come up with a full costing for each one of these items.
Mr. Rolfe? Oh, go ahead, or whoever.
Through the chair. Now, as far as the Hempson, that was what they were engaged to do, and I think they provided council an overview about how that happened. As far as the county, that's a separate process than what we had undertaken. They had provided the information and the report as to what they looked at. I believe it was a lot of benchmarking as well for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, please proceed, Mike, whenever you're ready. Or Councillor Vaughn, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Lots of numbers and papers thrown at us in a short period of time. So I'm looking at this thing called a Schedule A, planning fees 2024. Says at the top where no staff recommendation is listed, refer to the county proposed fee schedule. It looks like that, Mike.
Yes.
So lots of blank yellow spaces.
Kind of the start of that, to the start of the Hempson speed chart, please. Thanks. Yes,
I think it's that one. Can't really read the dots up there, but.
yes.
Yeah, okay, so I just want to totally understand what I'm looking at here. So I look at the very first one. Let's go with the official plan amendment. So it's got this county official plan amendment, local official plan amendment, current fees being 1,189. And then the full cost recovery being 8,020, which I'm assuming is Hempson recommendation.
That's correct. So
Okay, yeah, we're gonna,
all of these tables that are in the red is Hempson's proposed increases for the municipal portion only.
And if I may jump in to clarify, Hampson's is a full cost recovery recommendation. So where there is no staff recommendation listed here in these tables specifically for the planning, those items are covered off in the county proposal. So if you look at the county proposed planning fees, the first line on that is the official plan amendment, where it shows that 1189 is the municipal portion and the county portion is 2911. So the total of the two would be 4,100. So rather than go through each individual recommendation from Hempson, where it was already also recommended by the county to change, Mike is recommending the county.
to go with the county.
Yes, with the
Okay.
county recommendation. So the cost listed under the column labeled 2024 full cost recovery is Hempson's calculation of the full cost. That's not necessarily the recommendation that Mike is going with. He's proposing the county.
Okay, so just so I have this straight in terms of how I'm reading it. So Hempson's was 8,020 as a recommendation. County is 6,000.
To the chair. Hempson's was $8,000 for the municipal portion.
Oh.
Plus, you would add the county portion on top of that, which is 4,200 they're proposing, which would be 12,200. Have to look.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's,
okay, so again, I'm gonna stick with that same one. So the county is proposing $6,000 for this official plan category, first line. And for the municipality, we have 1,189.
yes,
And is that what we currently get for South Huron? So is there no change to South Huron?
so if on that sheet that you're looking at for the municipal portion.
Yep.
The county proposed.
Yep.
The numbers in black on the left-hand side are our current fees. The numbers in red, the brackets right beside are the proposed fees.
Of the municipal, okay.
So we would be getting an increase of $600
On that one,
or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah.
11.
okay, I have a better idea what I'm looking at now, thanks.
Any other questions at this time? Counselor Need, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mike, for the report and the summary. One of the things too, and that I like too, is just hearing about looking at the other municipalities and remaining competitive. And I think this is more of a question for the CAO, is we haven't done a user fee study since 2015. And I'm just wondering, it's every 4 years, correct?
Through the chair. It is recommended to do it every 5 years. Now, for the planning fees, the county usually takes lead on this, and they usually do them quite frequently.
Just in that vein, I was just thinking about remaining competitive and whether we needed to review them sooner, because as we adjust our fees, other municipalities around us might adjust their fees and we could be losing out on revenue. So that's just why I asked is whether or not there could be a check-in at some point, maybe in the future, to make sure that we're remaining competitive with other municipalities.
Okay, very well, thank you. Counselor McLeod Haggett.
We'll just continue going with the official plan amendment that Marissa was just speaking of. So this page here is if the full cost recovery for just the municipal piece is $8,000. But for the total for municipal and county, we're only looking at 6,000 where did they come up with the 8,000 for just municipal?
That was.
Like, that's a huge, huge jump.
And that was the numbers that Hampson's had proposed to us. They've done the analysis of what they figured the time would take in the application process. And that is what what they had provided with the FTEs involved through that process as well. The multiple FTEs, right? It would go through CAO and everybody else, the clerk, for that type of application.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wolf. Any other questions? Oh, Ms. Sue Colson, please.
Through the chair, I would just add to that, that although the full cost recovery was 8,000, this is one of those situations where you balance, economic development. And that is likely what the county did as well, to look at benchmarking in this particular case.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Dietrich.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have a retainer fee for the county now? Like, did we hire them? Like at one time, I think you paid so much to have that service.
Ms. Sue Colson.
Through the chair, yes, we get our planning services through the county. So there's a piece of the levy that is covering our planning services.
Right.
Yes.
So we could hire someone out of the county if we so chose to do so.
Through the chair, yes, of course. You could hire a private planner. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? Not seeing any. Okay. Please proceed. Okay, Ms. Sue Colson. Oh, Counselor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, I have to flip through a lot of pieces of paper to find the question. So to Mike, this was talked about before, where you were talking about the 4 different fees, and I'm asking about site plan control applications specifically. You use the terminology of major and minor. And I'm just wondering what the definition of major and minor happen to be for site plan control.
To the chair. So a major application for site plan control would be one that does not have any works within municipal property. They may have internal infrastructure works, but it does not come onto municipal properties. They're not hooking into like a closed drain or an open drain where we need to do that kind of review. And typically there's no securities retained for a minor application. When you get into a major application, it would be where, you need to get under a roadway or infrastructure and do any kind of connections where we have any securities involved, stormwater management ponds, again, hooking up to the drains and stuff like that. That's where we get into a major. So, and a minor agreement would be, a minor application would be an internal agreement that we could do for staff. When you get into the major, that's when you see the agreements come back to council for a bylaw for a resolution from council to enter into that agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Who's next here? Any other questions? Counselor Oak?
Yeah, thanks. So the county has sent this report out to the lower tiers. We're the first one on the block. I guess are we looking to make a recommendation to council on the county report as well with these recommendations? Oh, I guess it is recommend county accept the county recommendation for planning fees as well. And I guess the question then I have is, what are the staff's comments on those fees that are being recommended by county? Do you feel that they're warranted?
Mr. Wolf?
Through the chair. Yes, I was on that steering committee for the county. We had 3 or 4 of those meetings and we hashed through every single planning application increase and kind of modification to their planning application fee structure. We did vet it. The county does now have cloud permit, which is a fairly big expense. We do not. And a lot of the applications are getting a lot more technical. As you know, we passed a big update to our zoning bylaw for residential intensification to alleviate all those minor variances, the easy ones, right? But there is still there's still planning applications that come into our office and they seem to be a lot more technical, more time involved, right? So that was why kind of the county decided to do their fee structure analysis ahead of when their due date was. I don't think they were really supposed to do it until the end of 2026 or something along that line. But due to these changes, they're doing it now. So to go back to your question, yes, we have vetted it. We did have some good discussion back and forth, and I think this is kind of the best of both worlds.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Okay. Next, please.
So you want to go to recommendations? Back one. So again, through the chair, these are the recommendations from myself for the planning fees. And I think we do want to get a motion on these. Am I correct in saying that? With each segment?
Through the chair, if council or the committee would like different or want to provide different instruction at this point, we just thought it would be easier to go section by section through the fees and charges. So if the committee is prepared, we prepared a draft recommendation, but if there's changes, this is the time.
Counselor Oak.
Yeah, just one last clarification. The cash in lieu of Parkland. You know, I guess there'll be other municipalities that are going to be going through their scenarios shortly here too. Do you believe that everybody's going to stay at $500 if everything else is going up? And there's already one municipality at 1,000 and one at 750. I guess I'm just wondering, is $500 a realistic number for this scenario in the whole scheme of things?
To
Mr.
the
Roll.
chair. Yeah, this is a discussion that we had during one of those kind of committee meetings for the planning fees. And it seemed to be that there was quite a few that did not want to go higher than 500 because it was proposed to bring it all up to 1,000 or up to 750. And the consensus was they wanted to remain at 500. Whether that changes in the future, I don't know, but that was the conversation we had. When we continue to monitor the planning fees, like requested from Councillor Neeb, that's definitely something we'll be looking at, is just to make sure that we are comparable with those cash in lieu. So that one more quick point, that cash in lieu for Parkland is for consent severances when a new lot is created, a new buildable lot is created, not for your subdivisions or employment land creations, right? That's a different calculation altogether.
Okay, thank you. So, any other questions? Counselor Dietrich.
Thank you. When you say $750, that's kind of comparable to other municipalities. Is that full cost recovery?
Through the chair, $750 was by, I believe, Huron East is the only one that charges $750. There is no full cost recovery for cash in lieu Parkland. It is a fee that we can charge and we put into our reserves, Parkland reserves, for Jeremy's benefit when we do need upgrades to any kind of parkland. So there's no FTE time put into anything that we're recouping. It's just a fee that we're permitted to charge through the Planning Act that we then goes into a reserve.
Other question here is, I have heard of them given a lot for Parkland. Is that out of the question?
To the chair, no, that is quite common with your subdivision developments where we would take parcels of land where we could create parkland, whether it has infrastructure on it or not, like play sets. But this fee is strictly talking about when you're creating a lot through consent severance. So in that particular case, we would not ask for parkland. So we just take that this set fee and use that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Recommendations? Mr. Colson?
Is the committee prepared to do a recommendation at this time or not?
I think we are. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, please go ahead.
That South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend council accept the county recommendation for planning fees. And that South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the proposed municipal fees being site plan application fees, the municipal portion, application for recirculation, zoning certificates, cash in lieu of parkland, and that the above noted municipal fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year. And that were applicable, the fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year at September to September for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
Thank you. There's a mover. Counselor Need moves, seconder, Counselor Oak. Any discussion? Counselor Vaughn, go ahead.
Yes, just a clarifying question on that very last bullet where it says that where applicable, the fees be increased annually, CPI, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just trying to understand what's where applicable. Why wouldn't it always be applicable or?
Mr. Rolfe, go ahead.
Can we take it?
Oh, Kate, go ahead.
Through the chair, as the municipality has no authorization to increase county proposed rates, we are only able to index the municipal portion. So that's where the as applicable comes into play, as well as there's no indexing on cash in lieu of parkland.
Okay, so what that is saying to me is that the municipal portion, if we go for all of this recommendation, is subject to cost of living, CPI, sorry, for the next 4 years. No?
Mr. Rolfe.
Yes.
Through the chair. Essentially, yes, you're correct. However, with the county's proposed planning fees, their structure, they're proposing a CPI increase from October to October. So that's why it's a little bit different. So this increase would be for the four planning applications that I proposed before. So your site plan, recirculation, zoning certificates. That's what it would apply to. And again, cash in lieu does not get indexed. That's correct. So the difference is we are proposing to increase ours September to September CPI, where the county is proposing October to October. That's just their policy. That's how they configure their structure.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Vaughn.
So for clarity and for the future, should maybe we be amending that last clause to say that where applicable, the South Huron fees? Or I'm just trying to figure out if we're only talking a very small subset of all of these fees. I don't know that that actually speaks to that.
Okay, and again, we can't influence the county, so I'm
I'm not looking
No,
to
no.
influence county.
No, as far as like our motion here isn't talking about the county, but if you're satisfied with that, I turn to CEO. Your comments?
For clarity, we can certainly add it, but this is for basically accepting the county recommendation for planning fees. So they'll actually have a schedule. They'll be providing to us that'll estimate the actual increases. So the county fees will stay, both municipal and county will be set by the county. Whereas it's only the 4 fees that that Mike has recommended here, the site plan application fees, our municipal portion, the application for recirculation and zoning certificates that are actually getting increased annually. So they're only ours anyway. They're not the county. They're just the municipal ones. But if you.
I understand that, and that's what I understood. So if that last bullet in that whole resolution just relates to South Huron, I'm just suggesting why not say that? It's got nothing to do with county, and I think that's what you just said. There's four, maybe three that do relate to a September to September CPI from 26 to 29. And that last paragraph does not say that to me.
Okay, is there any harm in changing it to just?
It's
South
the where applicable that probably.
So a friendly amendment perhaps, Councillor Oak?
Just so that, like as was mentioned though, cash in lieu of parkland doesn't have it either, and that's a South Huron fee, right? So if we say South Huron fees, I'm thinking that where applicable is satisfactory, because then if we say South Huron fees except for the, cash in lieu, then then we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but I'm fine. I'm fine as it is, but I just don't, because not all South Huron fees are going to be part of this CPI increase in this category. And then the other question I have is, we're going September to September. Just that's what we do with our budgeting, I think. I guess in this case, is there an issue with going October to October with matching the county so that we don't have to do two separate calculations, or how is that going on? Because we've got two different CPIs being affected in the same category.
I'll turn to Julia.
Through the mayor. It was our thought that it would be easiest to stick with the September's to September. A lot of the fees are tied heavily to wages and staff time, which are typically by the September to September. The other consideration is the September to September, that information is available earlier as well. So we don't typically get that rate until the end of the following month. So that just makes it easier for planning purposes as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLeod Haggett.
And just for clarification, for the first one where it says that we're going to accept the county recommendations, are we accepting what they have here, given this is just their draft? Or are we going to be accepting what their final proposed is?
Mr. Rolfe, do you want to take that?
To the chair, you would be accepting that chart that's in front of you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. Mr. Carlson, do you have something?
Just for clarification, and we were talking about the South Huron recommended, maybe for clarity, because if we say that South Huron fees were applicable, it could be interpreted to include the South Huron fees on the county recommendation. So possibly it could go with that South Huron recommendations, that the fees that South Huron recommended be increased.
Would that bring comfort to those members of council? Councillor Vaughn?
Okay, having heard other discussion, notably from Councillor Oak, I'm thinking I don't wish to make this a big confusing thing for three potential fees. It merely just didn't ring for me, and I don't know if it will ring for other people in subsequent years. So I'm not exactly sure how to come up with a better way to say that. I think I can live with what it says.
Okay, very well. Any other comments? Okay, there's no further discussion. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Oak?
So just back to Councillor Haggett's comments about the draft report. If for some reason the county's report changes during all their discussions with the lower tiers, will we need to make a change in our recommendation? Or do we need to revisit that if that report were to change?
Mr. Rolfe, do you want to take that, or?
Yes, to the chair. From my understanding, all 9 lower tiers are going to receive this draft county change or proposed fees, and council recommendation would then be sent forward to the county. If anything changes on this chart, then yes, we would bring it back to this council for your information and follow-up resolution.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? That carries us 7. Thank you. Ms. Masood Carlson.
Next slide.
To the chair. These are the proposed fees for the building code application fees. Next slide, please, Scott. So I have not received any public comments post the April 2nd meeting. So with the exception of that one comment that we received due to the deposits, my recommendation is that we move forward with the originally proposed fees for the building application. And that would be a 75%. That the fees are 75% of the total 100% fees for the remainder of 2024. And then at 2025 would be 100%. Indexing then would start January 1st, 2026. And that would be indexing from September to September.
Okay, thank you. Comments, Mr. Rolfe at all?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think I mentioned this the last meeting that I think this is maybe a little bit aggressive as far as the two-year increase, but that's just my comment. I think this potentially should be phased in a little longer.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Dietrich.
I disagree.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor
Um, just wanted to go back to the earlier comment that Mike said about the 2024 application fees being 75% and then 2025 being 100%. So 2024, when would that be effective? That 75% increase?
To the chair. The recommendation is that it's implemented effective September 1st, 2024.
Okay, so that means that the 75% would only be 4 months.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Oak.
Yeah, and that was part of my reasoning that it should be spaced out a little bit more because basically 4 months difference between September and January. Yeah, that's where I was thinking September and September as opposed to September and January. But that's it just seems a little aggressive where we're going the extra 25% just 4 months later. So.
Thank you. Councillor Neeb, you had something.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Finch. And just a question that currently, what percentage of cost recovery are we at with our building fees? Because we're going to go up to 75% to 100. Do you know what that would be of the total cost, what our current fees are?
Through the chair. I don't know a percentage off the top of my head, but I do know an estimate of what we had to pull from reserves to achieve full cost recovery last year, and that was roughly 60,000. Am I correct in saying that, Julia? I think it was roughly around that. The year prior was an exceptional year. We did have an overage, but the years prior to that, so 3 and 4 years ago, there was a deficit. So unfortunately, I can't give you a percentage. I can get that back to you if you wish, but we are in deficits.
But I guess the big thing is if there is a deficit, that funding has to come from the tax levy. So we're either paying, having the users pay for the building fees at 75% or 100%, or the rest, the difference is going to be made up from the tax levy.
Through the chair. Once our reserves are depleted, then it would come from the tax levy.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. We can move on with the recommendations then. If there's no other questions at this time. Okay, Ms. Masuda Colson, do you want to read them? There's nothing further.
Through the chair, did you want me to read the recommendation out loud?
Please, yes.
That South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the building code fees as outlined at the April 2nd, 2024 public meeting. And that the fee increases be phased in with 75% of the full recommended fee implemented effective September 1st, 2024. And 100% of the full fee implemented effective January 1st, 2025. And that the fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, second by Counselor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with us 5. Thank you. Moving right along.
Corporate and financial services. I think the clerk will be starting this out.
Yes, so for corporate services, there were a number of items that were not recommended at all, like they remain static for the current rate. There are a couple items that came into effect last year. So there were 2 policy, an outdoor patio policy, as well as the deeming of municipally significant events. Those policies did come into effect last year. There were no fees associated to them at that time. It was mentioned that we would bring that back during this user fee study. So at the time, any of those that have come in have been no fees associated. So all recoveries come through the levy. Based on the information provided by Hempson's, the majority of the recommendations that staff are making align with Hempson's. The changes located on this slide here for request for record search and preparation of time, we have changed that to align more with the transportation and facility services hourly rate for staff time. So it's $50 an hour. So instead of it's $50 for every half hour, it'd be 25. The kennel license application, we did recommend 160 for the after May 31st. That aligns with their $25 increase for the applications that come in prior to then. Kennel applications, there's a lot more staff time and resources involved than just issuing dog tags. Multiple departments get circulated on applications, and we also have bylaw enforcement has to go out and do inspections. So there's a lot of time associated with those. Further down under where it says requests of council that required advertisement published in newspaper for public notice, we have recommended $50 an hour to align with the other items throughout, and then also advertisement costs. So there are certain items, as an example, council recently received a request for change to the business Holidays Act, Retail Business Holidays Act for an exemption. That act did require public notice be published in the newspaper. So the reason that we've included advertisement costs is to recoup the costs for publishing that ad, as it's a specific user who's getting the benefit. So that's why we've included that. Next slide. Oh, wait, sorry, back. How much more here? Request for council. Okay, yes, sorry, next slide. We've also just recommended some changing to some wording. So under events for flea market, 7 consecutive day show, the wording that was previously indicated was a little convoluted. So that's why we've just recommended a change in that wording there. There's been no change to the actual fee structure based on what's currently in place. Yes, and then there were 2 others, so a liquor license application fee as well as liquor license application extension fee. So currently the municipality does get certain requests if someone is looking to get a liquor license. There is staff time associated, certain documents have to be reviewed and then authorization provided to the individual so they can submit that to the AGCO. At this point in time, we do not have a fee associated with that, so we are recommending that one be implemented to recoup some of staff time. And I'll turn it, unless there's any questions on corporate services slides.
Any questions at all?
Okay, through the chair, continuing on with Schedule C for the financial services fees. The bulk of the financial services fees that were currently in place already were carried through with Hempson as they did align with a lot of the benchmarking in the area. For those where we did see changes, there was an increase suggested to duplications of certain documents, for example, tax certificates and notices of bills. Our recommendation differs from Hempson's specifically for a confirmation letter, as they did not initially recommend an increase. However, the staff time involved in preparing a confirmation letter where tax account payments, tax account status and whatnot is actually significantly higher than just a bill reprint. So we felt it justifiable to increase that fee accordingly. Our NSF fee is, again, the recommendation to increase to $50 is in line with benchmarking as well as with what the banks, the major banks also charge. And then new fees that were recommended by Hempson in light of additional revenue generation for the property tax administration included the property tax account setup, arrears notices. There are several municipalities across the province that charge for arrears notices going out. Just for reference, there are 6 arrears notices that are sent out annually to individual property owners who have outstanding balances on their taxes. Mortgage company administration. This is a fee that we don't currently charge, but again, was recommended by Hempson and is frequently charged throughout the province. And what this indicates is where there are accounts where a mortgager is in place, the mortgager is billed the administration fee for that. So if your mortgage is with TD and there are 46 other mortgages with TD where we send the bills to TD as well as to the property owner, TD gets a bill for 46 mortgages times the $10 per roll recommended. There's a significant amount more time attributable to administering for mortgages than there is for an individual who's paying on their own. Payment transfer fee and error correction. Again, this is a regularly utilized fee throughout the province. The recommendation is at $25 per occurrence, and we concur with that, as well as a transfer of unpaid accounts receivable or utilities accounts to taxes or collections so that they may be collected through the tax sale procedure, tax arrears procedure. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, next slide after that. So jointly, the clerk's department and the finance department would like to make the following recommendations if CAO Masuya Collison would like to read them out. Or if there's any questions, sorry, I should have asked that first.
That's okay. Any questions? Any questions?
Any questions?
Not seeing any. Okay, very well. Ms. Masuya Collison.
Let South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the staff recommendations for corporate and financial services fees as outlined in Schedule C, corporate and financial services fees to this presentation, and that the fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024 and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year, and that the fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
And as a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor Vaughn, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Move right along. Mr. Giberson.
So the environmental services fees, the one change we've made to simplify the fees for any work that is carried out on time and material. We're proposing that those fees be charged at the OPS 127 rates. These are universally accepted in the province of Ontario. They're maintained by the province and they're accepted by all. So it simplifies the billings for equipment by using those fees. We're also implementing an overhead charge for materials in order to recover our full cost. And the last change is our water frontage fees, which are essentially from the Stephen Township frontage fees. We couldn't find the actual last time those were increased, but the bylaw goes back to Stephen Township from more than 25 years ago. So we felt it was time to update them. With that, I would happy to take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Giberson? Counselor Vaughn?
Yes, just wanted to know about the water frontage fees. You answered my initial question, which was why not in 25 years related to Stephen. Does water frontage fees only relate to Stephen, or is it just the Stephen area that has not had their fees updated?
Through you, Mayor Finch. This also applies to the Exeter ward for any lots that are created by severance. Previous to that, there were no water frontage fees for existing properties in Exeter. But the water frontage fees for Stephen Township were a long-standing method of cost recovery in the Stephen ward.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess I'm on that frontage fee also, like we're doubling the fees for someone to hook into a line that's already there. Plus we're charging them a quarterly fee. I understand the $6,000, but I just don't understand doubling it up. And it goes for the AG4 and village recreational, like one. I just, to me, it's way too much of an increase. Thank you.
Any other comments? Continue on there, Mr. Giberson, if you have anything further, or Counselor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Okay, same subject, these fees. So this would apply in the future to Exeter, you said. But I'm not to the same extent, I'm thinking. So in the Exeter service area, if I look at this grid, we're moving up from $2,500 to $4,900. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So, okay, what is it that is so labor intensive, complex in a AG1, AG2, AG3? Because that one does in absolute dollars stick out quite a bit.
Through you, Mayor Finch. This is a water frontage charge. And as it's related to zoning is the length of the water main in front of that property. So properties that are AG 1, 2, and 3 are typically a full farm property with significantly more frontage. So the VR1 zoning, that's a village residential lot that's most comparable to a lot in Exeter that's either created by severance or coming off a private well. So that's why that rate was selected actually in a previous rate bylaw from several years ago. So that it's not related to the amount of work we have to do. This is cost recovery for the initial cost of that water main. So if there's more of it, then that's why the cost recovery is different. So it's the length that property is fronting on a water main.
Any other questions, follow-up, Councillor Vaughn?
I'm just trying to think about what might be fair in this situation. I understand that a farm goes from A to B and it's much bigger than any residential property. But the residential portion of that farm isn't quite the whole length of the whole property. So I'm just trying to think about what is reasonable. I think this is a bit too much of a jump. If we haven't done anything in 25 years, I'm not quite sure why we're trying to make it all up in one.
And this is for a new water service, correct, Mr. Giverson?
That's correct.
Unless the frontage fee was paid when original water main was constructed.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Councillor Neep.
So up until this point, the difference in the costs, where has that money come from for some of these frontage fees?
Through you, Mayor Finch, that would be coming from all the other users. They would be subsidizing this cost for all this time. That's correct.
Thank you. Councillor Neep.
And just to reiterate, this is when there's a development that takes place that these fees would be charged.
Through you, Mayor Finch, this would be when there is a property that is not connected to the water system that now chooses to connect, usually coming off a private well.
Thank you. Councillor Oak.
So just to clarify, this would be somebody that's setting up maybe a livestock facility or setting up a greenhouse or setting up some sort of a business that wants access to water on a farm.
Through you, Mayor Finch, that is correct. The typical AG1 is a business. It's a livestock, usually a livestock operation. I can tell you they don't bat an eye at any of these numbers.
And that require high volume usage of water that would exceed what a water well could provide. Is that right?
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. There's a reason why these exist in Stephen Township. Have for decades. Because typically the groundwater will not support potable water use for residents or for a business or a farm. It's very tough. It's no secret the shallow wells in Stephen Township have a very difficult time with water quantity and heavily influenced by surface water. So the quality to be safe is difficult. And the deep drilled wells are very hard. They're expensive to install and very hard water and they're sulfur water. So it's challenging for the water to be on a well in Stephen Township. And that's why we have these rural water mains up and down many concessions in the township. So the idea of the frontage fee is to recover a proportional share of the initial capital investment.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. Councillor Oak.
Again, I think this one seems a little bit aggressive in 1 year. But I understand what it's for, but I'd like to see I'd sooner see this phased in over a couple years at least, but we can't make up for what hasn't happened for 25 years in 1 year, or we shouldn't, but that's just it's just my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Need.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor Finch. Just going back to where the costs are being made up on the user fees already. So that means our current users of the water system are subsidizing the cost that we have failed to update over the last 25 years. So while I understand it is a jump, that is the cost. Cost is the cost. The time to adjust it is now. Phasing it in is, in my opinion, not appropriate, considering our users have been offsetting these costs for the last 25 years.
Thank you, Councillor Oak.
And I agree with Councillor Neeb on that point. Just wondering though, how many of these do we have in a normal year? And is it going to be life and death if we phased it in, if there's 1 or 2 a year?
Through you, Mayor Finch, I would say we would get more than a dozen of these a year. It's on the increase. As it gets more and more challenging, the agricultural sector it's tough to be on a well. So the numbers are growing. The in-town residential user, there's not that many. The majority of people are already on municipal water. There's just, off the top of my head, most of the smaller communities like Credits in Centralia, there might be a couple of people, 2 or 3 immediately come to mind, and some of the smaller villages that are still on wells. The Exeter, that's a growing number as we get more severance requests, and that is a very fair for somebody who's creating a lot by severance to pay their fair share of the initial capital cost. So, but the number was created, researched by Hempson's. It wasn't my creation or staff's creation. We took their recommendation. But it's at the pleasure of council what you want to do with these rates. But it is the idea, the concept is to recover our full costs and to get there.
And to that vein, if we don't recover those costs as described, as been mentioned, that is passed on to the current users forever until the costs are recovered.
Mayor Finch, that is correct.
Great, thank you. Councillor Oak, you had something?
Yeah, no, thanks. And just on a different area of this schedule, the late payment charge going from 5 to 8%, is that, do we have is that a significant number?
Through you, Mayor Finch, I would be happy to answer that question on behalf of the Treasury Department staff, because I know they want to be paid for what they do. That reflects the actual cost, and there is it's not an insignificant amount that comes in through late payment fees.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Vaughn?
Yes, I have a couple of other questions. We have a pickup truck rental, and I wasn't aware that we rented pickup trucks for a purpose. I'm just wondering if you could tell us what that's all about.
Yes, sir. You, Mayor Finch. No, we don't rent pickup trucks to anybody. It's that is, if a pickup truck is used for any type of cost recovery for a customer. So if we do work for a customer and a pickup truck is involved, this is the rate that we would charge to recover that cost. So it's not just the labor cost, but it's the pickup truck cost as well.
Okay, and so right now that's $15 an hour. And now you're moving it over to a recommendation that talks about Ontario provincial standard specification, and it goes on from there. I tried to actually look that up and didn't have any success. So I'm just wondering, what's the difference kind of ballpark between 15 an hour and whatever this is?
So through you, Mayor Finch, yes, I see it just mentions pickup trucks, but it also covers any other equipment, a backhoe, dump truck, other equipment in that item description. Should have been fleshed out just a little bit more than just a pickup truck. So if we do work for somebody who hires the municipality to say install a new water service, then the equipment cost, the previous bylaw had equipment listed and then a rate. So this proposal, or this proposed change is we would get away from having the rate listed in the bylaw, which we can never keep up with the changing costs for equipment, and link it to this OPS 127. So if you Google OPS 127 rates, it will come up. And the rate difference isn't significantly different. It's just they have all equipment that you can possibly imagine and then some, has everything listed. So there's never any argument about if you used a XYZ backhoe, a cat, whatever, they are listed in these rate structures and the rates are maintained by the province. So it gets away from constantly having to update the charges in the bylaw to reflect actual cost. The province is maintaining these rates for us. So pickup truck at $15 an hour. I don't know the number directly off my head, but it's not significantly different to go to these OPS 127 rates, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Councilor Bond.
Yes, please. So this would come into play, let's say we had a water break on a private property. No. When would these things likely occur?
This would be applicable if a customer chose to hire the municipality to install a new service. So installing a new water service. So this isn't, we're not out soliciting business, and we typically, like, we're not charging to go out and maintain and repair the water system. We do have customers who choose to hire the municipality to install either a sanitary service or a water service. And these rates are intended to have a set rate structure to bill that customer for the equipment. And the labor is covered in just a couple of lines before that. So it's where a resident, a customer chooses to hire municipal staff to do those installations.
And Mr. Giverson, how often would that happen that we would install that?
Well, to you, Mayor Finch, surprisingly, we're up to our eyeballs right now with doing installs. There's at least about 6 on the go right now. They're quite busy right now. There are dozens of those a year. It's a good option for a lot of like builders or homeowners who do not wish to hire a contractor to excavate on the road. But as I said, these are customers who choose to hire the municipality to install those services in the roadway.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Kate, go ahead.
Just to supplement Mr. Giberson's response here, on average, the Hempson report identified that there were $76,000 over the last 5 years annually that we recouped in regards to the fees that are proposed in this schedule. We are not in the business of renting equipment. We don't want to be in that business necessarily. So the fact that the province already publishes the OPS 127 rates is of benefit to us, where we don't have to maintain these rates. As Don stated, the province does it for them and they're widely accepted. So that was the premise behind the suggestion, the recommendation to move to that schedule for our use. It's not our primary business. We don't want to get into that business. So let's use what's already available to us. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the explanation, Kate. Well done. Any other, Councilor Vaughn, go ahead.
Yeah, on the, there's also, underwater wastewater fees, there's some boxes about temporary or seasonal shutting off of water service. It's actually referenced in two different locations. And one is called reactivation of closed accounts due to temporary or seasonal shutting off of water services. So, yeah, so one is $60 for turn on, turn off, and then another is $55. And I don't understand if these are two charges or how they differ.
Through you, Mayor Finch. The seasonal turn on and turn offs are typically the cottages. And there are some other seasonal use properties where the $60 turn on and off fee applies to those properties. The reactivation of a closed account, that's typically where, and I'm venturing into treasury's territory here, but a closed account is when a customer actually closes the account, where a seasonal turn on and turn off, the account is not closed. They continue, they want the water shut off, and then they want the water turned back on, but the account remains open and they continue to pay the base charge and the debt charge, but the account remains open. Any person can close the account and stop paying the fees. So when that account is reactivated, there's a fee to turn the water back on. So if it's closed account is something different than a seasonal turn on and off, because the account continues with a seasonal account. Like if they do a seasonal shut off, the account stays open, they still pay their bill, they're just paying the base charge and the debt charge.
Okay, thank you. Follow up.
Yes, I guess I'm just trying to understand why one of them is $60 and one of them is 55. Because when I read that, I'm thinking I would be better off to close my account.
Through you, Mayor Finch, that is why we also have a clause that when you reactivate your account, you have to pay the base and the debt charges that were suspended when the account was closed. So we do get accounts. So if you do it seasonally for 6 months, then as soon as the account is reactivated, you're back billed for the base and the debt charges for the time the account was closed. Some accounts are closed for years, and it's the same setup. So it's not just the fee to turn the water back on, but if you close an account, the municipality is still maintaining a water system and maintaining firefighting capabilities for that property without any compensation from that property. So that's why the clause is set up that you're no better off by closing an account, because you'll have to repay it.
Thank you. Council Oak first, and we'll go back.
Yeah, so just to follow up on that, so it's actually still $5 better to close your account because you're paying back that stuff and you're paying it whether if you just do a temporary, you're paying it monthly anyways. The debt payment and the base charge and everything you're paying monthly. If you close it, you're not paying it. You're going to have to pay it back. But there's no interest or anything. So you're $5 better off to close it the way this is reading. So I'm just wondering whether that should be 60 and 60, like should be the same.
Mr. Iverson.
Through you, Mayor Finch, absolutely. That's a good observation that it is $5 difference. There's really no reason for it to be different. I agree, it should be the same.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Vaughn, you had something.
That was going to be my next question, but we're good now. Just make them the same.
Okay, any other comments at this time? Okay. Okay, moving on to Mr. Giverson, anything further? You're done? Okay, we'll go with the recommendation.
That South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the environmental services fees as amended by, just bear with me here. As amended by maintaining both the reactivation and the closed fees at $60. So for clarification, temporary or seasonal shutting off of water service, $60, and reactivation of closed accounts due to temporary or seasonal shutting off water service to be amended to $60.
Counselor Vaughn?
Yeah, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but I'm just thinking about that again. The way things have changed now, it's gone up for $35 from 35, sorry, to $60 for a reinstatement. Whereas the closed was 55 before and staying at 55. And so I'm just reflecting here that maybe the reason it was 55 and 35 was a closed account takes more effort to restate. So I'm just thinking if we can make them exactly the same, but was there a reason for the difference in the first place?
Who'd like to take that? Okay.
So when we do a closed account, there are final reads and whatnot that are applicable at that time. And I would say that closed accounts would also require some sort of tracking for the base charges, the debt repayment and whatnot, so that were that account to be reactivated. So there would be some additional time and administration in maintaining and keeping record of those costs for the period of time that the account was closed versus the seasonal where they're being billed for those costs on a monthly basis or quarterly basis as would need be. So there is probably justification there for increasing the fee for the reactivation of a closed account versus the temporary seasonal based on the original fees in place.
Counselor, or Mr. Giverson?
Thank you, Kate, because that jogged my memory that for these reactivation of accounts, there is more staff time. Treasury staff do have more time to calculate the back charges. And there is more work involved in like resetting up that account. The seasonal turning off and turning back on does not involve the treasury staff. It just involves the frontline staff and the admin support to issue a work order, coordinate with the customer, shut the water off, and then same in reverse when the water comes back on. So the reactivation of a closed account does involve more administrative time. I can tell you the ones that have been closed for a few years, there's many hours of work trying to calculate the charges because we only charge actual costs. So there's research involved in when bylaw rates changed and calculating what the actual base and debt charges were over that period of time. So it does involve quite a bit more of administrative time.
Okay, follow up. Nope.
So I'm just thinking, pardon me, I'm just thinking if we're going to amend that motion, we're saying it doesn't make sense now that they be exactly the same, $60 for each. And I'm just looking to staff to say what actually does make sense, having gone through this entire conversation.
Comments, Mr. Giverson?
Through you, Mayor Finch, a suggestion previously there was a recognition of a $20 difference in the fee. So our suggestion would be just to make the reactivation fee $20 more to reflect the additional administrative time. So if we could propose it to be $80 and keep the seasonal fee at $60, so that would be our recommendation.
Okay, any other comments from council in regards to that? Okay, not seeing any, so that's what we'll proceed with on the recommendation. Mr. Sue Carlson, you prepared to do that? Okay, take your time. Oh, Deputy, go ahead.
Can I get everyone to speak up a little bit because a little noisy over here and we can't hear? Thank you.
Pardon me? Yeah, we can do that. Whenever you're prepared there.
So that South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the environmental services fees as outlined in the Hemson Consulting Limited Comprehensive User Fee Review and Generation Study dated February 2024. Save and accept the reactivation of the closed account to be amended to $80. And that the fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024 and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year. And that where applicable, the fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
Okay, is there a mover, please? Moved by Counselor Oak and seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries 1, 2, 3, 4, carries with 5. Thank you. All right, proceed on. Transportation. Mr. Giverson, go for it.
So the transportation services fees, it's the same process. We tried to simplify the fees. So wherever transportation services is hired by a customer to perform work, we're proposing this change that we move away from set fees for equipment to the OPS 127 rates.
Okay, questions for Mr. Giverson? Okay, Counselor Dietrich, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I notice here on the labor equipment operator, it's $50 an hour. And then the backhoe, if you want it, it's $80 an hour. So does that $130 total, or how does that work?
I'll let Mr. Giverson take that.
Through you, Mayor Finch, that would be at the current fees, and that would be correct.
Right. Now, my next question is, do you have anybody that can run a backhoe? We don't seem to have anybody to run road graders.
Mr. Giverson, how many would, can you answer that?
Through you, Mayor Finch, been a while since I've been on a backhoe, but I can run one. I'll give it a go.
Deputy, go ahead.
Sorry, just a comment. I'm probably reading this wrong, but it says equipment operated. Does that mean it comes with the operator? I just, no.
Through you, Mayor Finch, that description is from the current bylaw. So the OPS 127 rates are unoperated rates.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Not seeing any. Counselor Oak?
Just a clarification on the entrance permits onto South Huron roads, it's got no charge. Is that like if there happens to be a severed house comes off of a farm and then there needs to be another entrance to a farm on a municipal road, there's no charge for that that permit or anything like that?
Through you, Mayor Finch, that is correct. That's a typical entrance permit, but they are also issued in for urban lot severances. We also issue those for development applications, so for subdivisions as well. And it's more of an administrative exercise to be able to control where these are and have records of where the installations occur. There's minimal staff time involved, and that's why we've recommended no charge. It encourages people to apply for the entrance, And then we know where they are, and we'll have some input into the quality of the entrance that's installed.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Anything further, Mr. Giverson? All set? Good. Any other comments? Ms. Masuo Carlson?
That South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the transportation services fees as outlined in the Hemson Consulting Limited Comprehensive User Fee Review and Generation Study dated February 2024. And that the fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024 and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year. And that where applicable, it is recommended that fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to ask was, there's a new proposed fee here for a parking permit. What is that for?
Through you, Mayor Finch, we did have a planning application that required the applicant to apply for a parking permit. So that fee was implemented to recover the staff time involved in preparation and investigation of the appropriateness of issuing a parking permit. So maybe to anticipate the next question, it is not intended to recover the cost for somebody with ability issues that we have issued a parking pass to. This is intended to recover costs from somebody who's required to obtain a parking permit to park on the road as part of a planning approval.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Oak.
So that was say the Crediton building there. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Counselor Dietrich?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we go back to that entrance permit for South Huron Roads? There's no charge for the permit. But if I wanted an entrance, say, into a field south of my entrance, there'd be a fee then, and you'd have to put that in according to your specs, or how does that work?
Through you, Mayor Finch, the permit itself, there is no charge for. You as the property owner would be responsible for actually constructing the entrance. And the role of the staff is to ensure that the drainage is maintained. That's the biggest thing, is the drainage is maintained and there's a proper a culvert put on the entranceway. The other aspects for staff involvement is to ensure the location of the entrance is safe, so it's protects everybody involved. There's a few considerations for the location of the entrance, sight lines on the road, too close to an intersection. So it's that kind of advice to make sure that the entrance itself is in a safe location. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? We have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Right along, moving right along here. Chief.
This one's fairly straightforward. There hasn't been a lot of changes that were recommended either by the consultant or by staff. Other than aligning our inspection requests with other departments within the municipality. So any questions for the fire service recommendations?
Questions for the chief? Doesn't appear to be. Okay, if there's no questions, I'll turn to Ms. Sue Colson.
The South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the fire and emergency services fees as outlined in the Hemson Consulting Limited Comprehensive User Fee Review and Generation Study dated February 2024, and that the fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year, and that the fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? All the question, all in favor? Carries of 7. Thank you. Next one, community services. Jenna, go for it.
Okay, so through the chair, this slide gives a background on the karate programs currently offered by the municipality of South Huron. Fees for Rocky Pine Karate and Extra Karate have been included based on the current program offerings. These karate programs are offered to the community through a partnership program in which revenues are split between the two parties, with 75% going to the program instructor and 25% going to the municipality. Currently, both programs are being operated out of the Exeter Elementary School, provided free of charge to the municipality of South Huron through our reciprocal agreement with the Avon-Maitland District School Board. The municipality has reciprocal agreements with both the public and Catholic school boards, allowing us to use their facilities free of charge and vice versa. So for the fees, there was no change to the fees that were currently being offered. We just kept the same fees as is. I know it can be a little confusing because there was nothing in there before. So this is really just formalizing the current fees that are being charged.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. The drop-in programs fee, which covers current programs such as pickleball and carpet bowling, has been increased from $2 to $3 per visit based on comparative data. Next slide, please. In this slide, the fees for the Exeter District swimming pool and programs are highlighted. There were no changes proposed to the fees suggested by Hemson for the pool. Next slide. I guess if there's any questions at this point, we can do questions.
Are there any questions for staff at this point? Councillor Oak.
Just a question, in light that Perth South is now running the Kirkton pool, these rates are comparable to the Kirkton pool rates. I think both municipalities are working together with rates. Is that?
Yeah, so
a
as
good
of right
assumption?
now, yeah, oh, sorry, through the chair. Our current fees are currently the same as what Kirkton Woodham is charging. So these fees are being recommended. They wouldn't take effect till our next pool season. So Perth South would have the ability to either mirror us, or I guess that's their decision.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any questions. Move on to the, Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
So just to clarify, these are the rates, the staff recommendation are the rates that are for Wednesday with registrations, that these wouldn't kick in until next pool season.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pickleball, $3. Do they pay for their own bats and balls and stuff like that too, or do we supply them?
Through the chair. So as it currently is, we provide the nets and we provide the balls, and they come with their own paddles. We do have a few rental sets that have been donated by the South Huron Optimist Club. That if someone is just coming, they want to try it out for the first time, don't want to quite commit to buying a paddle, we do rent those out.
So in other words, I'm subsidizing that too. Thank you.
Moving right along. Any other questions? Okay, move on to the recommendations then.
The South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the staff recommendations for community services fees as outlined in Schedule G, Community Services Fees to this presentation, and that the fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year, and that the fees be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, second by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. On. Go ahead, Jenna, I think you're taking that.
Yep. Okay, so you can go to the next slide, Scott. Thank you. During the March 4th presentation of the Hempson study, it was noted that similar municipalities such as Blue Water and North Middlesex were not included in the current benchmarking data when comparing fees. It was also noted that there were discrepancies amongst the numbers, as some numbers were pre-HST, while some were HST included. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that staff have compiled additional information on ice rental rates as per the following municipalities' 2024 fees and charges bylaw. These numbers are all pre-tax. This chart captures ice rental rates of 13 other municipalities within a 60-kilometer radius of South Huron. The chart is listed in alphabetical order from A to Z, beginning with the municipality of Blue Water. Below the chart, you can see that staff have highlighted the data lows, highs, and averages. In South Huron, non-prime ice is Monday to Friday from open to 4 p.m. and prime ice is anytime after 4 p.m. during the week and from open to close on Saturday and Sunday. As it stands, South Huron does not have a specific youth program and minor sports hourly rate. In 2017, Council amended the fees and charges bylaw to include discounted rates for youth groups based on overall ice rental fees. This discount ranges from 1 to 10% depending on overall usage. As you can see in the chart, having a specific hourly rate for youth is very common amongst other municipalities. In South Huron, this would entail South Huron Minor Hockey and the Exeter Skating Club. For reference, during the 2023-2024 season, South Huron Minor Hockey rented 75.5 hours per week between the South Huron Rec Center and the Stephen Arena, and the Exeter Skating Club rented 10.5 hours per week at the South Huron Rec Center. Staff have proposed to implement the Hempson's recommended fees for ice rentals over 2 seasons, implementing 50% of the proposed increase per hour effective September 1st, 2024, and the full increase taking effect on September 1st, 2025. If we wanted, do we want to pause here for questions on the ice rentals? I know it's a big one.
Sure. Any questions at this point in time? Counselor Oak.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess just one comment that I want to make on the ice rental, and I agree that the rates got to go up. Costs are going up, and I have no problem with that. My only suggestion is that minor hockey or some of the user groups have already charged their registration for the upcoming season as part of getting a handle on how many how many kids are going to have for each of the programs to set the team sizes for tryouts and things. So they've already set their registration fees for the coming season. So my recommendation is that, you know, proposal to look at 25% in September instead of 50%. With the idea of potentially going to 50 and 25 or whatever council decides after the September increase. But I think we should have a slight, you know, should have an increase, but I don't think it's fair to the user group that's already charged their season out already before we've changed the ice rental fees here. So I would recommend 25% for this September instead of 50%.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussions at this time? Okay. Think. Go ahead, Jenna.
Yeah, we can carry on. Next slide, please, Scott. So this slide covers the ice rentals as discussed, as well as the fee structure for the dry arena surface when the ice is removed. It also covers the fees associated with the South Huron Recreation Center, Banquet Hall, and the Crediton Dashwood Community Center. Next slide. This slide covers Port Blake, sports fields, advertising, memorial benches and trees, and Elliott Park. Next slide, please. In the next slide, staff will highlight changes to the Hemson's recommendations and the reasoning behind them. An hourly rate for staff time has been added to Schedule D. The Hemson proposed rate was $60 per hour, and staff have proposed $50 per hour to align with the equipment operator rate as proposed within the Transportation Department's fees and charges. This fee will be used for cost recovery purposes for special events that fall within the scope of the resolution passed by Council in 2019, that any licensed charity in South Huron be exempt for payment of fees related to the rental of South Huron facilities for special events. Next slide, please. No change to the arena floor concrete pad rates is recommended. Utilization is low and we do not want to discourage usage. Currently, we have a women's ball hockey league that plays out of the South Huron Recreation Center. This league consists of 7 teams and 14 weeks of regular season play plus playoffs. There are 2 weeks this summer where they are unable to play in Exeter and they will relocate to Stephen Arena, where lines for ball hockey have recently been painted by staff. Staff are also looking into painting pickleball lines on the arena floor to increase usage over the summer months. Other events on the arena floor include the South Huron Hospital Gala and the Rummage Sale. This slide also outlines the discounted rates introduced for youth in 2017 as previously discussed. Next slide, please. This slide highlights recommendations to phase in the Hemson proposed ice rental increases over the next 2 seasons. Staff recommend adding the youth and adult program rates consistent with the South Huron Rec Center to the Crediton and Dashwood Community Center to provide an affordable option to rent the small halls for various programs and activities. The Hemson proposed hourly rate for youth activities is $26 per hour and the adult rate is $34 per hour. Staff are also recommending the kitchen rental and bar charge remain unchanged for the Crediton Dashwood Community Center. Next slide, please. For Port Blake, staff have included the Port Blake Task Force recommendation of $30 per vehicle. For the ball diamond fees per game, staff have recommended 50% of the Hemson proposed increase to be implemented to keep us in line with nearby municipalities. Next slide. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Jenna? Deputy?
Thank you. The only question I have is, Elliott Park camping. Like at $5. It's really, really cheap. When you're going through town or I guess because I'm a camper, I see these things. And to stop overnight someplace where you have a dump, where you can dump and get water, clean water, $5 is to me is ridiculous. I think that should be at $10 personally. Thank you.
Okay. And comments from staff? Are there any comments at all? Councilor Oak?
Just for clarification, what are the services that are at Elliott? So there is the sewer disposal there, but there isn't water there, is there? There is water at each one of the sites? No. Okay.
And then how do we police that, Jenna? Do you know offhand, and how effective is that?
So through the chair, for a little bit of background, Elliott Park wasn't previously in our fees bylaw as the Sable River Nomads used to maintain Elliott Park. Like we still cut the grass, but they would go there every day and collect garbage and they would collect the fees and then they would give the Parks Department a donation every year from the fees that they collected. So for Elliott Park, there's just it's the honor system. There's a drop box where you can leave the money and the $5 was the previous suggested donation. So we just kept that as is, but it is a pretty good deal. Yeah, but it's really by the honor system and then staff collect the money daily.
Okay, thank you. Deputy, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. Maybe we could put the signage a little bigger so that it's easier to read, so that people understand, because some places you pull in and you don't see signs. I'm not saying it's there, I forget now, but that way you could see what the charge is. Most people don't know whether there is a charge, so thank you.
Okay, very well. Any other comments? Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thank you. There's a number of new charges here for advertising. And I guess I'm just which that's good, that there's some other sources of revenue here. I have some questioning about the rink board advertising. I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of advertising on the rinks, rink boards. Gets a little messy if if they're not kept up from year to year. So I'm not 100% sure on that side of things. And then the arena wall board, I do know in the past there had been some arrangements with the junior hockey team, the Hawks, on that. So could I maybe get some clarification on what the thoughts are? Our staff are in favor of the advertising that's listed here.
Sure. Who would like to take that?
Yep. I can
Jenny,
take
go
that.
ahead.
Through the chair. So previously, like at the South Huron Rec Center now, you will notice that there is wall boards. There did used to be rink boards as well, but then when we replaced the rink boards a few years ago, it's a different type of system. It doesn't allow us to, previously what we used is you'd have the ad on the rink board. You would be able to attach it to the boards and then you put Lexon on top. These new boards don't allow for that. You essentially have to go to a type of sticker, which a lot of arenas don't have the best of luck with. They do show wear and tear quickly. So we have discussed it at a staff level, and we pretty much said if we were to bring back rink board advertising, it would be at the condition that they would be replacing it yearly, and that cost would be to the one doing the advertising. And then our previous agreement in the past has been with the Exeter Hawks, a junior hockey club. So they were the ones who actually collected the fees in the past. That's why it's not in our current fee bylaw. So it's a bit of a unique arrangement. It's not typical amongst any other municipalities that I've chatted with. So they collected the fees, and then we split those revenues 50%. 50% they kept, and then 50% went to us. So us adding in these advertising fees is just a way for us to achieve a higher cost recovery and recoup some of the costs of recreation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Oak?
So in here, I know when we did the renovations to the two arenas, there was talk about maybe naming rights on dressing rooms and different things in the facilities. And so I'm just wondering if this is something that is a larger discussion piece than putting this advertising section in this bylaw or in this recommendation, that it's explored further as an overall marketing or advertising or naming rights report to come back.
Jen, do you want that?
Through the chair, there is going to be a sponsorship program review that is going to be happening, that second step. However, with this advertising, I believe this was recommended to be brought forward at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vaughn?
Yeah, with the rink board advertising and the arena wall board advertising, these amounts of money, are these meant to be yearly?
Yes, that'd be through the chair. That'd be a yearly fee, yes, or per ice season.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Oak?
Just a question on page, the recommendation about the licensed charity events, that we still has an exemption for use of our facilities. I guess I'm just wanting maybe a further discussion on, it looks like we are now going to charge them labor. And I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about, something like the South Huron Hospital Gala, that we're charging labor, our time, for something that's raising money for a hospital or something like that. That's a charity in our community that's so important. So I just wondered if there's any further discussion on that, because I'm not in favor of charging our staff time on an event like that. But
Ms. Masuda Carlson.
Through the chair, that is already in that exemption that we have. That South Huron staff and resources would be subject a fee based on a cost recovery basis. That is already included. So if council was looking at changing that resolution, that would be a separate step.
Councillor Oak.
So have we been charging these community groups for our labor at this time?
Through the chair. So when that resolution was passed, it said that Schedule D was to be amended to reflect that any fees. And it never was officially amended. So we have not been charging since this resolution has passed. We've been waiting for a fee to be added through the fees and charges bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. All right, do you have anything else, Jenna? Very good. Okay, if there's nothing further, I turn to the recommendation.
I'll read it that as is, and then if somebody has anything to amend, just let me know. But South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of the staff recommendations for facility services fees as outlined in Schedule H, facility services fees to this presentation. And that the fee increases for arena ice rentals be phased in with 50% of the full recommended fee implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and 100% of the full fee implemented effective September 1st, 2025, with the fees to be increased annually on September 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029, and that all other facility rental fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year, with the fees to be increased annually on the January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
And is there a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. And discussion, go ahead, sir.
Yes, as I've mentioned before, I'd like to see the phase in at 25% for the arena ice rental for September 2024. I wondered if that could be an amendment.
Councillor Neeb.
Just for clarification, what would the difference in cost be between the 25 and the 50%? I know that's kind of coming up with that off the cuff, but be kind of curious to know what the difference would be.
I'll wait for staff. Do you have that, Jenna?
Through the chair. So Hemson's original increases for non-prime ice, what they proposed was $21.31 per hour. For youth was $21.95, and then for prime was $39.95. So that was Hemson's increase per hour. So when we broke it down to the 50% of the increase for non-prime, that was an increase of $10.66 per hour. For youth was $10.98, and then for prime was $19.98. So if we went to the 25% for non-prime, that would be $5.33. For youth, it would be $5.49, and for prime, it'd be $9.99.
Councillor Neeb.
And that would be per hour?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on that? Councillor Vaughn.
Yeah, since we're trying to figure out like the dollar impact and sort of this upcoming season. And it is per hour, and I hadn't known previously that there were commitments made by the hockey playing population ahead of this particular meeting for this upcoming season. So I mean, we show things in terms of um a per hour, but I don't know what the actual individuals are paying up front. So I'm assuming it's not just 1 hour we're talking about here. So like a 10 dollar increase per hour, if there are 50 hours, is quite a bit for the first year. So I don't know. Counselor Oak, can you give me any clue what it is that we're talking about in terms of absolute dollars? Because it's not cutting it for me on the per hour fee.
Counselor Oak?
Yeah, I think Jenna did mention that there's like 75 hours a week that minor hockey is renting currently. Times, I don't know how many weeks it is. It's the contract is October to March, but they rent a lot of ice in September and April as well. So 8 months of the year, the arena is being used with ice in it. So I don't know, 75 hours a week times how many. So if we do who's the quick accountant here? My phone doesn't like me
Go ahead, Kate.
doing the math here.
So if you start in September to December, looking at the 2024 portion of the season, you're looking at approximately 16 weeks. 75 hours a week is 1,200 hours.
Times $10 an hour,
So $12,000 increase.
just
approximately.
September to December.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then there's
And then the additional, were council to, or were the committee to recommend the recommended 50% increase, then yes, then the additional 50% would be in the 2025.
Yeah, but
from January to April.
so if we were to do the phase in of 25% in September and then do the 75% next September. To give them time to adjust their registration fees. Because they've already, that's been done for this hockey season coming up, which is September to April. So it's already done for the season, so and then go with the 75% for the second for next September, the September of 2025, that is.
And just for clarification, Counselor, would the 25% increase be passed on to the users, or how would that be done, to the executive, or how would that be done? Would their rate change what they've already paid?
So the South Huron Minor Hockey rents the ice. And it's a nonprofit organization, so they charge the users a registration fee to sign up for minor hockey. So
Exactly, but would they still have to increase, if they did a 25% increase or a 50% increase, they're still having to change what the registration. fee
I
that
think
paid.
they could probably handle the 25% increase with the probably the bank account that they currently have, with a little bit of room there to because they do run tournaments and where they make some money as well. Yeah, anyways.
I guess that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
Through the chair, just to be clear, without knowing South Huron Minor Hockey's financial footing at the moment, I would want to clarify that an increase of $10 per hour for ice rental time is not an increase of $10 per user. So it's not one person it's not a player that is absorbing the increase. It's the executive or the organization itself spread over however many registrants they have. To be entirely clear, I don't know what that number is, what their registration level is.
And deputy, then we'll go to Counselor Neeb. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just, that's what my question was, how many participants are there that this is spread over?
Do we have a number for that? Does anyone can provide that, Counselor Oak?
No, I don't have their registration for this year. In the past, it's been anywhere from 500 to 700 registrants, I believe. But I'm not sure what the current, it's been growing as as girls hockey becomes larger and larger. That number is getting larger every year. So I'm not sure exactly.
Thank you. And Counselor Neeb, you had something?
Just a question about the timeline as far as when was the most recent update to the user fees for ice rentals?
Through the chair, the last increase was during the 2016-2017 ice season.
Thank you. Any other questions at all at this time? And do we want to amend that motion? Is that what you're looking at, Counselor Oak?
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to 25% for this year and 75% for the second year.
Okay. And who seconded that? And who was the mover and the seconder on this? Do you remember? Have that? Was it Counselor? Okay. Would that be a friendly amendment? No? Okay, thank you. So we have it moved by Counselor Oak to amend it. Is there a seconder to amend it? Counselor McLeod Haggett. So we're on the amendment here itself. Can you just read the amendment so we're clear on it, Madam Clerk?
So the amendment would be that to amend the fees increase for arena ice rentals be phased in with 25% of the full recommended fee implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and 75% of the full fee implemented effective September 1st, 2025. With the fees to be increased annually on September 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for periods of 2026 through 2029.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Counselor Pond?
Yeah, okay, so I'm just trying to understand that amendment. I do understand the first piece where we're talking about phased in with 25% of the full recommended fee for this September. But it's and 75% of the full implementation effective September 1, 2025. I don't quite understand that. Should it be a 75% or should it be 100%? Like, how many things are we changing here?
Madam Clerk, do you have a comment?
So, Councillor, if the committee chose to recommend to council, 25% of the proposed fee would be implemented September 1, 2024. And then the additional 75%, so I guess to hit the full 100% recommendation would be September 1, 2025.
Through the chair, I think it should probably be 25% effective September 1st, 2024, and 100% of the full implemented fee effective September 1st, 2025. So just the 25% for September 1st, 2024, and then the full amount for September 1st, 2025.
Go ahead.
Chair, maybe the full amount of the staff recommended. The 100% of the staff recommended rate.
Did you get that?
So it would amend the motion that the fee increases for arena ice rentals be phased in with 25% of the full recommended fee implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and 100% of the full fee recommendation effective September 1st, 2025, for the recommended fees of staff, with the fees to be increased annually on September 1st by Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for the periods of 2026 through 2029.
Let's go to Kate for a moment.
Through the chair, I just want to clarify that the staff recommended full rate is the same as the Hempson recommended full rate. So just for clarification purposes, the fully implemented rate as recommended by staff is the same as the Hempson recommended rate.
All members of council are clear on that. Thank you. Okay, so Madam Clerk has read that. So moved by Councillor Oak and Councillor McLeod Haggett, you're the seconder, if that's fine. Councillor Oak.
Just to back to, as we're wrapping up this section, Deputy Mayor asked about Elliott Park. And just wondering, are we going to adjust anything there? And then the CPI, I guess, is there a minimum, you know, because if it's 3% on a $5 charge, you know, or whatever, is there like a minimum increase on some of this? You know, I'm not going to charge $5.23 or whatever, you know what I mean? So
Perhaps we
just-
could just stay on the motion, the amended motion right now, and then go to another minute motion if you would definitely want to do that. Would that be okay with you?
okay,
So let's stay with this one here.
all right.
So it's amended, you moved it, you seconded it. Is everyone satisfied with what Madam Clerk has read? Okay, so if you'll just read it one more time, just so we're completely clear on it, so we don't get sidetracked.
So motion to amend that the fee increases for arena ice rentals be phased in with 25% of the full recommended fee implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and 100% of the full fee implemented effective September 1st, 2025. So that's the staff and Hempson recommendations, with fees to be increased annually on September 1st by Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for periods of 2026 through 2029.
So moved by Councillor Oak and amended, and Councillor McLeod Haggett seconded. Is there any discussion? Call the question for the amendment. All in favor? And that carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, thank you. And then Deputy, you wanted to make an amendment also.
Yes, I'd like to see the fee at Elliott Park go up to $10 per night.
So moves. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Vaughn, any discussion on that amendment? Okay, call the question all in favor for that. Okay, that carries a 7. And Madam Clerk will let you get prepared so you can read the final recommendation.
So the recommendation that South Huron Committee of the Whole recommend to council approval of staff recommendations for facility service fees as outlined in Schedule H, facility services fees to this presentation, save and accept the Elliott Park fee to be $10 per night. And that the fee increases for arena ice rentals be phased in as amended. So it's 25% for full recommended fee implementation effective September 1st, 2024, and 100% of the full fee implemented effective September 1st, 2025, with the fees to be increased annually on September 1st by Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for periods of 2026 through 2029, and that all other facility rental fees be implemented effective September 1st, 2024, and remain static for the 2025 fiscal year, with the fees to be increased annually on January 1st by the Statistics Canada Consumer Price Index for Ontario for the previous calendar year, September to September, for periods of 2026 through 2029.
And a mover, please. Moved by, I thought we moved with Counselor, who did? Okay, so Counselor Neeb and Counselor Oak. You're satisfied with that? Correct? Okay, good. So fine. And then there any further discussion on this? Counselor Vaughn?
Did we have the Elliott Park increase in that whole? Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other discussion? There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Ms. Masuda Carlson.
That the Committee of the Whole receives the municipal user fee presentation and associated documents for information, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends to Council that a draft fees and charges bylaw be prepared by staff for consideration at a future council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Dietrich, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries a 7. Thank you. Ms. Masuda Carlson.
That South Huron Committee of the Whole now adjourn at 6:31 PM.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Counselor Neeb. No discussion. Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. Thank you to our staff.